Whew, I'm telling you, man. Today we're facing some things breeding reptiles that I don't think people have ever faced before. Everything is like brand new. It's a new day and age for breeding reptiles, and particularly ball pythons. So in this video, what I'd like to do is discuss some of the obstacles that we faced and that I've seen other people face, and in particularly how I handled them.
These brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. These brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice.
Hey, welcome back everybody to Spheric Reptiles, and I thank you for tuning in today for this video on how you can handle some of these obstacles that are out there. But more importantly, I'm gonna give you how I handled them. So hopefully it acts as a good baseline for you to determine whether it's a good way to handle it or not. But either way, at least you'll have that baseline as to what to expect for obstacles when breeding ball pythons in particular. Because the reason I want to say breeding ball pythons, because there are so many ball pythons on the market, but there's a lot more people in the US that can buy them. So out of 330 million people in the US, and I keep saying that every time I think I do these videos once a year, but out of 330 million people, the reptile market is only 4%. So at 4%, it still presents some obstacles because the illusion is what's out there. So when you look at morph markets, you see a lot of reptiles, anywhere from, at some points, it was like 50,000 ball pythons. At some other points, it's been down to like 25,000. And that's within the last year and a half to 2 years that the market's fluctuated like that. But I would like to discuss just some obstacles that we faced and how I handled them. So whether you're starting out breeding ball pythons or you've already been breeding ball pythons, the things that I'll be discussing are things that most breeders do not talk about. I mean, you ask them, give me some tidbits of information about some things to look out for, and guaranteed and there's top 3 things that they're going to say. They're going to say, do what you want. They're going to say, stay in your budget. And they're going to say, work your own projects. Don't chase anybody, right? And that's good. And that's true information. But when it comes down to the real obstacles, when the dirt hits the road or the rubber meets the pavement and you're trying to make dollars match up with your life, and then your reptile breeding life, then those things don't always match up. So I'm going to discuss with you just 4 things that will help you hopefully not have these obstacles, or at least you'll be able to see them coming before they get there, and then you can plan for them, and so that you can be happy when you're breeding your ball pythons. So number 1, feeding hatchlings. So I'm skipping over everything. I'm starting out with what you're trying to do. You're trying to breed ball pythons, so ultimately you want hatchlings, right? Well, by the time most of us buy these hatchlings from other breeders, they've already did the hard work. All we got to do is continue it. Now, I know that there could be some discrepancies in how we do that. And, there's some problems with some animals eating or not eating, but in particularly, it's hit or miss when your hatchlings come out of that incubator and now you're faced with them and getting them to eat. So that's a real dilemma. So you've done all of this work, you've perfected all of these things, getting your male to eat and pair up with your female and lock, and your female's still eating. She grows the follicles, goes through ovulation, pre-lay, boof, eggs. You put them in the incubator 55 to 60 days later, you get them, and within a week they shed out, and you're excited. On 1 week, I'm gonna feed them, I'm gonna feed them, I'm gonna feed them. And then you go down and put it in there, the little fuckers don't wanna eat. They just don't wanna eat. So that's one thing that's real. And I'm not gonna say that it happens across the board, but I would say it happens with about 25% of the hatchlings. And it's just not in my collection. When I ask other breeders that have been in the game a lot longer than we have, they're having these same issues. So how do I deal with that? Because that's why you're tuning into this. Well, to be honest, I'm putting it all out there. I feed frozen thawed to my collection. So my hatchlings end up, before they go to a new home, they're on frozen thaweds. But do they start out that way? No. I start them out on a live mouse hopper or a rat fuzzy, right? So, and I've been hitting my head against the wall as to which one is better. I don't know if it's temperature or if it's barometric pressure or it's humidity or whatever. Sometimes they all go for the hopper, but lately I've seen that they've been going for these rat fuzzies. Now, it's easier to feed a live rat fuzzy because the hoppers For one, when you're transferring them from one place to another, because I have to buy my rodents, I don't breed them, but if you breed them, the same thing. These little fuckers are carnivorous. By the time you get them home, they've eaten the face off of another mouse hopper. And I know that's a different subject, which goes to why I like frozen thawed. But with the rat fuzzies, I'm finding greater success with them just overall, just because they're slow moving, they're warm, they're fuzzy, they're fat. So it seems like that acts as a better trigger than the mouse hoppers. Now, I know that someone's going to disagree with that. Hey, this is just my opinion and what I've seen. And either way, whichever one works for you, but that's a solution that I found, is to go with the live rat fuzzy, because I know that this rat fuzzy won't bite my snake, right? They are just out of the rat. They're not even weaned yet. They don't have the ability to eat, but I got to get these 4 to 5 feedings into these little monsters that have hatched out because it's a race, man. I'm telling you, I'm teaching them how to eat. They're pooping all the time, but these live rat fuzzies work pretty good. Now, after that, after about 2 meals or 3 meals, I quickly convert them over to frozen thaw, because by then their metabolism is going, and then that helps. Now, what happens if you put in the rat fuzzy or the mouse hopper and it's been 3 meals and they haven't eaten, and now it's about, we're talking about 15 days to maybe 20 days, and now you see that your animal is actually losing weight. They're shedding their baby weight. So all of the nutrients they absorbed when they are absorbing their yolk sac, it's kind of going away, and you see your animals losing weight. You weigh your snake again and it's down 10 grams. So that's when I would say step in and assist feed or hand feed. So assist feeding is when you kind of work the mouse all the way down, or the rat all the way down the animal's throat. Hand feeding is when you can just put the head inside of the animal's throat, and then it kind of takes over. You sit it down and it kind of takes over. They both work. Ultimately, you want the animals to eat on their own. So I haven't seen any instances where the assist feeding does not turn into hand feeding, and ultimately does not turn into feeding on their own. So generally it all works out, unless they have some digestive issues that prevent them from ever digesting, but that's not a feeding issue, that's a digestive issue, which is one of the things that you'd face too. But just for overcoming it, in particular, I can tell you the sizes that I use that helps me decide, because sometimes the rat fuzzies are a little bit too big. So if an animal is under, let me explain this. If it's born under 60 grams or 55 grams, then you'd want to go with the mouse hopper, because the head of that hatchling ball python might be too small, or the digestive cavity might be too small to support a fuzzy rat. Now, if the animal is over that, so if it's 70, 75, 85 grams, if you're blessed to have an animal born at 95 grams, which I've seen just rarely, but then that animal can definitely go straight to the rat fuzzy and have a greater instance of success. But that's an issue that you will face, and that's how I handle it. Market economics and how many clutches should you have? I think this is the biggest question that's out there, right? Because you can have all the clutches that you want, but I don't think that you're actually breeding to just have more animals to feed. You actually want to sell some of the animals, right? And so the market will dictate a lot of that. So again, the places that I go to that for now are very reliable are the BEA, or the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and the BLS, which is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Now, those two entities are federal entities in which we can see them. And then you can also couple this with the federal interest rate. But if you look at the Bureau of Economic Analysis, it's looking at all of the things that we trade, right? So it's looking at the prices of all these things, and it's weighing them out. And you can see where the prices are up high, then you know that we're probably going to have inflation. And if they're down low, it gives you a barometer. So I like to look at this for gas prices. I know that if gas prices are high, then I'm not going to be able to buy that many gallons of gas, because the price of gas, like in Texas, if it gets to $3.30, then I know, hey man, this is a lot. It should be down to $2.65, which is what it is today, which I know that's a big swing, but that's one thing that could determine what you do, because when that gas price hits the pocketbook, then it makes people think differently about everything that they do, because they're paying more for goods and services. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tells you the unemployment rate. And then you can actually drill down and look at your local areas so you can see what the demographics for that is. So if you're planning on doing a reptile expo, I will look at the BLS and interest rates. And then if you can find some demographic numbers online for the average income for the area that the reptile show will be in, then that could let you off to some cues as to how many clutches you should have, as well as to how to price your animals. Now, online sales are different. Online sales are different. I don't have a way to be honest on how to determine what's the best way to sell online for new breeders or even existing breeders. But I can tell you that looking at those numbers will definitely help. So if at the end of the year, you just don't want to go through, you could actually use an auction. So you can use Palm Street auctions where you don't set a reserve, or you can use the Morph Market auctions where you don't set a reserve if you're just trying to sell or move animals. And that's a thing, because we can't all go to pet stores and say, I have these ball pythons, would you like to buy them? Because even they're getting overloaded with the number of breeders bringing them in ball pythons, right? And can you imagine that? I mean, because really, if you think about it, only 4% of the entire economy is buying reptiles. If the market is down, I know that I need to increase reptile shows, right? So I need to do more shows because I need to be out there, because people are still trying to find things to do. And a reptile show is still a relatively inexpensive thing to go to, like $10 to $25 nationwide to get into a reptile show, right? And that's not for a VIP pass. It's just, hey, I want to go. Let me pay for the family to get out and do something fun. But again, if the market is down, I'm going to increase my reptile shows. But this is what I also do. In a down economy, I will try to price my animals in the pet level, because it does no good for you to be a new breeder and have $1,000 snake or a $2,000 snake sitting in the rack that you're feeding over and over and over, versus having a pet quality animal that you sell for $500 or less and that you can move. So that should determine, like if you use those market forces in determining your pairings and the number of clutches that you have, so that you're not overwhelmed with animals, right? So that's not why we got into this. We got into it because it's fun. And again, in another video, I said, make sure that you can feed your animals, or what are we doing? But that's what I do. All right, so number 3, what do I breed? Do I breed for the higher valued animal, or do I breed for the pet quality animal? And how does innovation work and all of that? So this is what you got to do, guys. I mean, and this is real talk, man. I mean, this is what I'm doing. So I saw that we were able to move a lot of animals, all of our animals last year in 2024. In 2025, our animals came a little bit later. It's taking them a little while to get on food, and we are moving animals, but I'm using the shows and Morph Market to do so. I've done a couple of Palm Street auctions, but the ones that I didn't move any animal because I set a reserve and it just didn't work for me. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to use it again, because I'm pretty sure that I will. But one thing that I'm seeing right now, until the economy changes, is that even when people go to reptile show, and this is just being straight up, guys, they see a lot of ball pythons. So they see about 65 to 70% of the show is ball pythons. Realistically, there's other animals there, but those animals have a smaller percentage of the reptile market to begin with. So what I would plan to do if I were you is, again, like this sounds cliche, but create something new that you like, right? It doesn't have to be what everybody else likes, but look around on Morph Market, look around at the shows before you decide on what you're going to breed, and try to create something new, or that is just not as high in numbers, and then be innovative as to how you do it. So you might have to turn to social media with that, with Instagram, taking photos. You might have to put them on YouTube. You might have to put them on TikTok. You know, whatever you got to do shows, whatever you got to do to get these animals out there in the hands of people, so that you're not sitting on them. And this is, again, this is a talk for people that are aspiring to be new breeders, or that are going into new breeding. And I say new, I guess you could say you're new until 5 years. And then it's also for people that are already breeding and looking for ways to change up their game plan and try to just do a little better in moving their animals, right? And so far, we're not having an issue with moving animals, but who knows what's down the road because of the market economy. Again, look at that BEA numbers and BLS numbers, as well as the interest rate. The Fed's just recently lowered the interest rate. And here's why it's key, because there's over 8,000 pattern morphs for ball pythons. Now, so we're talking about obstacles, right? And one of the things that's out there amongst the other reptile breeders is that ball python breeders don't pay attention to, like, man, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, locale specific ball pythons, right? So, and whenever I hear someone that breeds other reptiles, and I'm trying to stay positive, that are saying that ball python breeders don't care about locale specific reptiles, why not? We actually do. When we're getting other animals, other breeds of animals, other species of reptiles, we do care about where it comes from. But in the case of ball pythons, even those that come from the wild have all of these different pattern morphs. And that's just the name of the game right here. So right now with ball pythons, we're dealing with pattern morphs, just like they do with reticulated pythons, just like they do with BCI boa constrictors. They look at those pattern morphs just like they do with crested geckos. So there's nothing wrong with you being a new breeder wanting to create a new pattern. Now, you might say out of 8,000, how do you differentiate that? Well, for me, it's about not making a brown snake. I mean, and I'm just telling you how I handle it because I want to be candid and truthful with you as you move forth with this journey. So I don't want you beating your head against the wall. So when I say don't make a brown snake, so we know which ones sell the best. So anybody who makes blue-eyed leucistics, they could produce blue-eyed leucistics every year. Super butters or whatever, and they will sell out every year. As long as they don't price them too high, if you price them between $250 and $450, you're going to sell out every single year. And breeders, we just don't produce that because we're trying to make something new. But in actuality, the closer we get to the blue-eyed leucistics with the albinos, with some of the VPI projects, and just those snakes that just don't look brown, the ones that have the color pop, they always sell better. Why? Because people always want something, and thinking about being innovative, that other people can't have, right? Even if they don't pay a lot. Because people don't have the money to pay a lot anyway. Not all, but a lot of people, the majority of people don't have a lot of money to spend anyway. So they still want the biggest bang, the biggest wow factor for their buck. So as you are looking for your pairings and the clutches and what you're going to try to produce, think about that innovation. Am I going to create something that has not been seen before, or that is a little bit rare to where when I look at a Morph Market page, and again, I like to use Morph Market because it's the #1 platform out there, that they want to look and see that they don't see something that is so widely abundant that it's just hard to differentiate their product from another product when it comes to these animals. And #4, this is the very last thing, and I promise, guys. But I think all of these obstacles are equally important. But #4 is, are you doing this as a hobby or are you doing it as a business? I mean, that's a major question, because if you're doing it as a hobby, then you can't get any tax deductions. If you do it as a business, you spend a lot more money, but you don't get all that money back. If any of you have ever did that, you only get a certain percentage of it back because it goes through pass-through income, which lowers your working taxable income down from your losses, right? So Uncle Sam isn't going to cut you a check for the exact amount that you spent on all of your animals. It just doesn't work like that. If you choose to go from a hobby to a business, you're doing it so that you can generate revenue. Now, each one of them should be treated the same when it comes to the care of the animals. And that's why, to be honest, this is the major obstacle as to why people are getting out of breeding ball pythons, especially those that got in for COVID and they paid all these exorbitant prices for these animals. And now they're trying to get their money back. And there's no getting your money back, because these snakes, even in their pattern morphs, have a depreciating value, but the cost of rats stays the same. So you're spending more on your rats and you're losing money on these snakes that maybe you spent $5,000 for, maybe you spent $1,000 for. Now the $5,000 snake is worth $1,000. Now the $1,000 snake is worth $250, but you're still feeding these rats. And if you're a hobbyist going into breeding, you're spending at least $2.50 every 2 weeks, so $5 a month per however many animals you have. And this could play a real role as to whether you choose to continue or not. And this is just the obstacle that I face. In facing this obstacle, what did I do? First, I set a predetermined amount of money that I even wanted to spend on this business, right? because I already knew how to take care of the ball pythons, but I wanted to know exactly how much I would spend at each level. So at 10 ball pythons, at 25 ball pythons, at 50, at 75, at 100, at 125, I already know what's comfortable for me to spend and still live my normal life comfortably versus what would put me into stress, right? And that's what you don't want to be. You don't want to financially stress yourself out from taking care of your ball pythons, whether you're in a hobbyist or a business. Now, hobbyists can still do shows. Hobbyists can still get on Morph Market and everything else. It's harder to get those tax deductions unless you declare yourself as a business. So that's the major thing that I would say is if you're doing this and you're doing the shows, go ahead and just do a sole proprietorship. I'm not saying go out and do an LLC like we did, but do a sole proprietorship at least so that you can use the Schedule C deduction. And then if you go to the LLC, then you got a different type of itemized deduction that you have to do. And I would say talk to your tax professional about that. Talk to your tax professional about both to see before you buy your products and the things that you want to write off, how those things will be depreciated. But that's what I did first. I determined my number that is good and comfortable for me to spend. Secondly, on this, one of the obstacles that you'll face is your husbandry, because when you look online, you see a lot of different comments on what's acceptable to breed. So do you do all bioactive enclosures or do you do a rack system? I think that's the number one thing. So the way animals work, the way science works, and we got to believe in the science for this. If an animal is not comfortable, it will not breed, right? So if a female is stressed, she will not breed in the animal kingdom. So I would say that both systems work. Both systems have their advantages. So the one obstacle that I didn't want to face was someone else's opinion, because I don't care about someone else's opinion. I only care about the science. So with the rack systems, the advantage is that we have clear tubs for everything. Now, I do believe in clear tubs. That's an opinion, that's a preference, but I also believe in being OCD with the cleanliness. If I have them in these tubs, they need fresh water, they need fresh air, they need ways to get enrichment and exercise, whether it's me picking them up and holding them while I'm changing the water, or whatever it is that I got to do to get these animals to exercise, feeding them different, smaller amounts, making them move, maybe not feeding them every week, whatever I got to do to keep them healthy and in a sanitized or sanitary environment, I got to do. Now, flip side, if you choose to go with the bioactive, now you're going to spend more money on the setups, which if money's your issue, that's not the way that you want to go. But if that's the only way that you got to go, then I would say reconsider going into breeding, because I know how it can be. If you can't get it right, then it's like you'll continually struggle with that, and it'll continually be an obstacle for you. But don't stress out too much. There's a lot of people that are out there, and there's a lot of information that's out there. But the number one thing that I did was I consulted people that had been in the game for over 5 years. And I wanted to see exactly what they were doing. And for those breeders, the ones that I still trust today, they use rack systems because it's sanitary. They know when there's poop available or when there's poop around. They know when the animals have defecated. And they know after they feed, they need to go through all the racks. They're all close together in proximity, so they can run through, they can do all the water changes, they can feed all their snakes at one time. I mean, it runs better. And for those that choose to do enrichment like we do, you don't feel as guilty about it. And I think that's because we name our snakes, so I don't feel guilty anyway, because they all have I don't know if snakes actually like me or not, but I'm the snake daddy. So I want to treat them like they are my children, right? So they are my kids. I take care of them. I do everything for them. I know they need me, and I take that very serious. If you're doing it as a hobby, I would say don't produce more than 4 clutches a year, right? So still produce your clutches, but this way you're not overwhelmed. And then if you're going into this as a business, it's anything over 10 clutches. Now, you might say, wait, you just said produce 4, and then as a business, produce 10. Well, because if you're producing it as a business, the IRS wants to see that you're trying to make money from this. And if you produce 4 clutches a year, but then you don't have animals for the majority of the year, then they can actually, after 3 to 5 years, and say, well, is this a hobby or a business? And I don't think you ever want them asking that question about you. So that's why I say if you're looking at this as a hobbyist, 4 clutches or less, and then as a business, 10 clutches or more. Because I think that, if we multiply that times an average of about 8 eggs, or even if we say 6, then that's 24, and then at 10, that'd be 60. That's enough for you to sell 60 hatchlings and still say that it's a business. Of course, you could produce more than that as a business, but I'm just saying to start off as a new breeder, getting into this game, I think that that's a really good number. I've discussed a lot with you guys today, and I hope that it's something that actually helps you. So these are real obstacles that I faced that I overcame, right? So like I said before, what I face as obstacles, just to refresh your memory, is feeding hatchlings, the market, what to look for and how many clutches to have, and then how to be innovative with the numbers that we have, making something new and different and figuring out a way to deliver this product to customers. And then lastly, whether you do it as a hobby or a business. So let me know what you think about this type of content, guys, because I'm really trying to put it out there so that you can make a sound decision, a rational decision, weighing out the pros and the cons of whether you choose to move forward or not. Now, I'm encouraging everybody, if you can do it, because I think that if you can do this during your lifetime, it gives you such a sense of accomplishment that it's just, there's nothing that can compare to it. Personally, I love breeding reptiles. I love my ball pythons. I love all the reptiles that we have. And, it's just something that I just want to put out there as I encounter obstacles, and then I overcome them, or anything that I face and I overcome in this reptile breeding journey. I just want you to know. But if you like this, please like and subscribe to the content, and let me know what you think in your comments. And if nothing else, guys, enjoy that time that you spend with your reptiles and cherish that family while you have them.